Hello, Nico here, and today I want to share with you my top 5 indie games that I played in 2023. Please keep in mind that this is my list, and these games are, in my opinion, the 5 best games I played this year. So the list is subjective, and they are games I had fun with and was excited to talk about. So if you haven't played some of these and they are a genre you would enjoy, then I definitely recommend you check them out for yourself. They are in no particular order, but I did want to cover a few honorable mentions first. Also, for the sake of transparency, I'm a big fan of the Metroidvania genre, so you'll definitely see a bit of that in my choices, but I did my best to make sure I have variety here as well. The first game I want to talk about as an honorable mention is Afterimage. It is a Metroidvania with a ton of different equipment that you can upgrade, accessories, a massive skill tree, all different weapon types, a great story with some excellent voice acting, really good soundtrack, pretty fun bosses, just a ton of content. This game will take you easily like 40 plus hours to play through. They've added some new modes through DLC patches. They were free updates, but still, just a really great Metroidvania. Definitely recommend checking this one out. The next game I want to talk about is a turn-based RPG by Zeboyd Games. It has a unique story in that you play as a group of magical girls, and it uses Shakespearean themes, and it has a pretty unique like skill unite system type of combat, where you can really kind of like mix and match your abilities and do these really kind of cool combos and try and use different elements to take down your foes, and just overall just a really fun game. It has a really great soundtrack, the dialogue's really well written, and it has kind of like 2 versions with a lot of the dialogue, where it has like the old version and then it has like the Zeboyd version, which is like more modern. It's more modern if you don't understand the Shakespearean dialogue. So yeah, just really well done turn-based RPG. If you've played any of Zeboyd's games before, you'll definitely enjoy this one. It came out recently on Switch and it's also on PC, so definitely check this one out. Next up is one that's not so much a new game and more of an expansion, but I still wanted to mention because it is an absolute blast to play, and that's the Return to Castlevania expansion for Dead Cells. This is just so well done and just made so much sense as an expansion, as Dead Cells took so much inspiration from Castlevania games and kind of had its own twist. So to kind of have these two together, as a huge Castlevania fan, it was just an absolute joy to play through it. There's just a ton of music, the enemies from the Castlevania series. There's Alucard and Richter and Simon, and just some great boss fights and just new environments. Just top to bottom, just really well done. And if you haven't played Dead Cells before, I mean, what kind of a rock are you living under? But definitely check Dead Cells out as well. Dead Cells has a ton of content. They've done other unique expansions that they crafted prior to this one. I don't know if this will be their last expansion, but it was just so much fun. And if you're a Castlevania fan and you haven't played Dead Cells, you should definitely check this one out, because it's just a lot of fun. It's pretty hard, as Dead Cells is, but you'll have an absolute blast with this one. So that'll be my last honorable mention. And so now we'll get into my first game. It was one of my favorites, and that's a game called Gunbrella. It's on PC and Switch as of right now. And this is like a side-scrolling shooter game with a lot of mobility, and it's really unique in that your weapon is the Gunbrella, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a gun with an umbrella, so you could do like this high jump, and you can parry attacks with it, and you can kind of float, and you can attach to different like things for mobility, like a conveyor or something like that. And It's a little bit on the harder side. It has like a little bit of a darker story. You can upgrade your Gunbrella. There's side quests. There's quite a bit to do in this game for it being... It's not real long. I don't remember exactly how long it took me to play through it, but it's on the higher end of difficulty, so you might get more playtime out of it than I did. But yeah, highly recommend this one. Great pixel art, pretty fun story. Definitely check out Gunbrella. Next up is a puzzle platformer game called Ugly. And I find this name to be so funny because when you look at the visuals for this game, it is anything but. It has this hand-drawn, just beautiful art. It has this unique mirror mechanic for solving your puzzles where you can switch back and forth between like your shadow form and your regular form. It tells a very dark and, I don't want to say depressing, but a very dark story. And it's almost exclusively told through these scenes that are like drawings, and you work your way through, and the puzzles get harder. You learn new ways to manipulate the mirror mechanic, and then yeah, there's some really great epic boss fights, and then there's some post-game content that's got a much higher difficulty. It has some accessibility options and a good hint system. It's just an overall top to bottom, like, amazing puzzle platformer that everybody should really play. And it's available on a lot of different platforms, so there's many ways to play it. So definitely check out Ugly. Next up, and this will probably be a surprise to no one, is Sea of Stars. It's a turn-based RPG, heavily inspired by Chrono Trigger, so much so that one of the guest composers is actually the composer from Chrono Trigger. You'll have 3 characters in your party like Chrono Trigger did. It tells a really fun story. It has amazing pixel art. It has some pretty good combat, in that it has its own kind of combo system where you can build up these charges and do combos with your characters, so it requires some character synergy there. There's a variety of different characters that you can switch in and out of your party at different points, so you can kind of play how you want. You can also switch them out mid-fight, and there's some equipment, and there's a cooking system, and there's just a lot to do here. There's a break system in the combat as well, where you might have to hit them with a specific attack, and if you break their guard, you'll cancel their next attack, which should be familiar to people that have played like the Octopath Traveler series. There's fishing. It's just a really enjoyable experience that I can't recommend enough. Turn-based RPG fans, this one's an absolute must-play game. Next on my list is another Metroidvania. It's called Elderand. And Elderand is a game that for some, it might turn you off a bit because it's a little bit more, I don't want to say retro, but it's a little bit more old school in its design choices. It plays more like the DS era Castlevania titles. You have 2 different weapon sets you can switch between. There's a variety of different magic staffs you can use. There's all different types of weapons like swords and axes and daggers and all sorts of stuff like that. You level up, you earn skill points. You can put them in 4 different stats, such as your vitality, your strength, your dexterity, or your mana. And there's some epic boss fights. It's harder because it doesn't have some of the modern elements of Metroidvania games, like being able to dash through enemies and stuff like that. You can dash and air dash and things of that nature, but you can't like dash through an enemy, so there is contact damage. And it has a skill-based combat, so it's a little bit on the harder side sometimes. You could, I guess, ultimately grind if you get a bit stuck. You could grind because you can level up all the way to 100, but it's a harder experience, but it's a fun experience. It tells a great story. It has amazing pixel art. It has a great soundtrack, upgradable equipment, some side quests, and some side activities to do. It's a really great game, and I highly recommend this one if you're a Metroidvania fan, but just go into it knowing that it doesn't have some of the modern amenities of that genre. And then last but not least is the beat 'em up slash roguelite spin-off kind of the Double Dragon series. This is Double Dragon Gaiden. This game is a new spin on the long-standing Double Dragon series. Always pretty much a beat 'em up. We've had some pretty fun Double Dragon titles in recent years, like Double Dragon Neon was a great one, but this one takes it to a different place. It has the roguelite elements where the core gameplay is beat 'em up combat. You have two characters you take with you, so if you play single player, you can switch between the two, and there's upgrades. You'll earn money while you're playing, and at the end of each level, you can pick between a few different upgrades for both of your characters, so you can upgrade them as you go. There's various levels, and depending on which way you play through these levels depends on how long they are. The longer the campaign goes, the more sectors there are. So if there's a level you don't like, you could play that sooner and only play 1 or 2 sectors, whereas the ones you leave for later, there's 3. So there's some variety in replayability. There's a ton of unlockables like new characters, art, music. There's even some tips that you can unlock with your tokens. You earn tokens by cashing out your money at the end of a run, whether that resulted in making it to the end and beating the game or a failure. You could still earn some tokens. Just a ton of variety. It right now has local multiplayer only. They did say around launch that they were going to patch in online multiplayer later. It's been quiet on that front, but hopefully it still comes, as this game would probably be a blast to play co-op. Just a ton of different ways to play it. Lots of replayability. Highly recommend, but if you don't like roguelite games and you prefer strictly beat 'em up, you might not like it, but I think, as a huge Double Dragon fan, I think it's a great twist. And it's very fun and engaging. And lastly, just the music is so well done. Double Dragon has just such a great back catalog of music to remix, and they did a great job of selecting not just tracks for the music to remix, but also characters, unlockable characters that you can play as, which I won't spoil. But yeah, just a ton of content, a lot of fun to be had, lots of replayability if you're willing to alter your path throughout your playthroughs. And so this is the last one I would highly recommend. So this was my list of my top 5 favorite games of 2023 for indie titles. There was a ton of other ones that I played that were really good, but I didn't want to make this video too long. So if you're interested in maybe some other ones that I enjoyed, go check out my videos. I do quite a few reviews, and a lot of them are on lesser known indies. So you might find a gem in there that you end up enjoying that you haven't heard of. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment below. Let me know what your top 5 indie games are. Maybe there's games that you played that I didn't know about and that I can check out. And maybe I'll end up finding out something that I enjoy that you played. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And hopefully I'll see you on my next video. But until next time, have a good one.
That's good.
Double Dragon Gaiden! Rise of the Dragon!